Shaboomba. Okay. All right. We made it. Made it to the recording part of the day. Ah, yes. Let's get after it. Ooh. Got a bug bite on my calf there. Had to scritch it for a second there. Speaking of scritches, we've got cats in the house and it's very nice. They're cute. Haven't been around this much like animal activity forever. in like forever. Having just little critters running around the house. It's really cool. I like me some cats. I do. Especially ones that are mild. These ones are mild. They don't just hang out all the time on your lap and on you and always poking into your deal. I appreciate that. I like some space. Anywho, this episode of the podcast is not about cats. Or is it? I'll tell you one thing that it's about is running, and we better start doing it or else it's not a run cast. Ba-boomba, shaka-ka-taka-taka. There we go. We've begun. Now it is officially a run cast. We are holding wing cam in the tradition of last time. So I'm experimenting with interweaving the wire between some of my fingers in order to hold it fast in such a way that the wire doesn't bounce against my chest too much, but also that there's no spiraling lattice of wire down one of my arms that threatens to, if I extend or retract too many times, attach itself to my body in such a way that the next extension might pull out the cord. It's never happened, but I'm watching this thing because what's happening here? We're paying a lot of attention to right now. Why? Because we're already uncomfortable. Why are we uncomfortable? Because we're running. Running is uncomfortable. We're moving quickly, more quickly than we would be moving. And we have one arm partially immobilized. It's not like I'm trying to seesaw y'all through space. I am being conscientious. Although, I respect that all these playbacks include a nefarious amount of head waggle, or cam waggle, if you will. So far, when I attend to the playbacks and check them out, I've been delighted mostly. 9 times out of 10, I'm delighted by what happens. With all the cringe and all the squeamish, not a fan of my own work sort of thing. I'm also delighted because it's just a thing that we did, you know? It's pretty sweet. Made this thing happen. But I am also alert to how very much waggle there is in the view of this podcast. At least for now. I'll be playing around with a possible head cam situation coming up here. So we'll see. Hopes are high, expectations low, morale high, temperature in the middle, just a hair more humid than I'm used to. Just a little bit more moisture in the air, which is nice. A little balmy. I like balmy. Enough cloud cover out where the day is not stark bright, because we've all been there, haven't we? Yes, we have. Whew. I woke up at 6:40. Tried to go back to sleep. At 7:05, I was like, I've been teaching my body that 7 o'clock is Wim Hof time. So I guess this is what's happening. So I just did it. I broke 3 minutes once. I did 2:59 once. And I found myself shaking my head a lot on the dives. Looking left to right, and actually moving my head left and right quite a bit. My body just really wanted to move that way as I dove into the hypo-oxygenated condition of the dive. And that happened all 4 times. And I actually attributed some of the seconds that I probably lost to the tension that was in my body for the amount of time that it was in my body as I moved my head and like slowly relaxed, realized the place that I had plateaued out at with my tension level was not complete relaxation, and so endeavored to relax a little bit more. It's kind of like a lot of other things about being a person. Relaxation happens in waves, doesn't it? It doesn't happen all at once, particularly not when you're attending to the structures in your mind and really feeling out. And that was another part of it too, wasn't it? I was dedicating an unusual amount of bandwidth to coming back to, well, what Socrates in the Peace of Warrior movie said, losing the mind so that I could come to the senses. Losing my mind so I could come to my senses. It was, I'm going to say partially successful, but it took bandwidth to be open to that condition more than usual. It's like trying to skip a wave of relaxation, kind of, and head right into the super slack, super relaxed place without doing the intermediary steps first. So it was like, how do I do this? How far can I go? How far before I go so far that my mind recoils and is like, oh my God, that's too much too fast. Can't recede my grip that much that fast. Not used to it, don't want to do it. Think thoughts. Spaz out. Do anything but just sit here and look at what's happening. It's crafty, that mind. I kind of feel like, because we talked a few episodes ago about what is harmony. Harmony in the big scale often looks like chaos in the little scale. What is quite a nice to do and a harmonious little interaction for a spider's daily commerce is the complete annihilation of the world of how many flies and gnats and insects. You know what I'm saying? So for me, the image just came up of a Samurai Jack episode. Samurai Jack is a visually stunning show. I haven't followed it religiously or to completion, which is fine because, yeah, there's a narrative to that story, to that show, but it's broken up throughout installments that are set years apart. And even then, the sense that I get is that most of the content is very one-off-ish. You can just jump in any episode and get a full experience. You don't have to follow along. To be continued. Tune in next time to find out what happened with this, that, and the other thing. Breakups, shakeups, and makeups. That kind of thing. So, in this Samurai Jack episode, that I've seen twice or three times now. Must have been a teen when I saw them. When I saw it, the theme of the episode was ninja versus ninja. Samurai Jack is probably closer to a ninja than a samurai. Certainly closer to a ronin than a samurai. If you want to look those terms up. Shout out to Gaijin Goomba for his show Witch Ninja, where he fawns over ninja culture. And debates the authenticity of this or that ninja in pop culture media. Forget where he landed Samurai Jack. I think he called him a decently good ninja. Anyway, Samurai Jack wears a white kimono and has a blade, a katana blade. And he's got the whole thing going on. The sandals and the top knot. Or at least something like the top knot. And one episode he finds his way into like some kind of an abandoned industrial structure, like a large silo or warehouse, if my memory serves. Punched through by the light of the sun in many places. There's large rafter complexes, beams, platforms, places to stand. It's almost like a jungle canopy or a forest canopy in there. Just a lot going on. Three-dimensionally rich environment. And Jack encounters a dark ninja. A ninja that it's a robot, and its metal body is like a really dark color. I think it's black. And it doesn't reflect the light. So it's like this inky, voidy foe. Let's take us a ride. And Samurai Jack comes upon this critter. And I think they have like a brief exchange of blades and such. All very visually stunning and whatnot. Because of amazing graphical artists and good team collaboration, I'm sure. After a brief exchange, Jack folds his kimono sash, belt, whatever you want to call it, inside out so that it's no longer black facing on the outside, but revealing the white interior or underside of the belt. And he pulls up a hood, I believe, if I remember correctly, like a white hood, and conceals himself in the whiteness of his kimono. Now entirely white. And he said something like, "Oh yes, I know your tricks. I know your ways, ninja. You use the shadows. And you hide in the shadows. I will seek refuge in the light," or something like that. It was all very Jedi Sith. And the rest of the show was them fighting in this strata where the highly stylized graphical presentation was highly acute planes of geometric shapes. So trapezoids and beams and things would be what you were looking at, and then white and black shapes flying through those interlocking, interworking white and black beams, rafters, and other structures. So you got to see portions of Jack and the Ninja briefly flying at each other from their domains in different parts of the screen. Blades flashing, and each trying to out the other, to get one up on the other, to best the other. And, Jack wins, of course. But that exchange reminded me of that conflict of trying to relax too fast. It's like, my mind, this bright, lit up, firing, whirring, loud, never-ending cavalcade of multimedia. What's a cavalcade? Stampede? Cacophony? All those words probably do some justice to the experience of the mind, moment to moment. That's one side. The other side, the dark side. It's inky, voidy, low resolution, also rich environment. But nothing is clear. Everything is built on shifting sand. Growing, expanding, contracting, and absolutely fleeing the sight of the conscious mind. Kind of like an eye floater. I have an eye floater in the center of my right eye. So the center of my right field of vision is a place where this surface tension-y, river strider looking piece of visual feed is constantly lurking and constantly returning to and then I try to look directly at it and it runs away. Flies partially out to another part of my vision. Because as I try to look at it, my eyeball moves. And inside of that fluid, there's this exchange. It's just like that with cornering emotions. You just gotta kind of open to them. You can't just be like a grumbling, half-drunk barbarian trying to grab a rabbit with his hands in the thicket where the rabbit is home. He's gonna out-jump, dodge, juke, and evade you every time. But perhaps, if you're quiet and sit still long enough, and you have the proper scent and the proper feeling, you'll be acclimated, and perhaps the emotions will come. And of course they always do. They're always there anyway. It's just the analogy, of course, always falls short. Because what is talking but focusing word-using structures of my being onto something that itself really can only be hinted at, right? I'm aware that I'm beginning to talk in circles. And that's okay. That's okay. Because in Jack's world, the conflict is violent. In our world, sometimes the conflict between these structures can be violent. Other times it's more like a spider and fly harmony, where there's a greater ecosystem being sustained through time as different parts play their part and interact with other parts. Yeah, there's a whole here, a system, a holistic thing happening here. There's a lot of abstraction in this conversation. There's a lot of blurriness. That's okay. I'm not here to master these subjects. I'm here to practice them in real time. Stumbling, hacking up biological atrocities, and speaking linguistic atrocities, all doing violence to themes that are themselves beautiful, musical, synergistic, and perfect, until a human stumbles on them and tries to figure them out. That's the name of the game, though. Time check. There it is, 17 minutes, okay. I was gonna take a right and head back, but we've got time. Yesterday was explosively lucrative for me. In my little world of small numbers. But still, it was shocking. And I met it very peacefully. Yesterday was probably the most successful day I've had delivering food to people to date. Even though a couple orders went screwy, the adaptation and the adjustment were fine. Today, what will happen? What will this be like? I don't know. I don't know. One thing's for certain. If you're doing everything right, nothing is going wrong. Copyright, trademark. That's Dan again. Or Dan must have taken that from somebody. I seem to remember that Dan, Dreamer CEO, took that from somebody and used it and cites it and honors the original source. I'm trying to remember if that was his or if he indeed did take that. That's what we're all doing here. We find tools. Sometimes we find them within ourselves. Sometimes we find them with others. I'm using a lot of tools from a lot of different people right now. I'm currently embodying that sense of if you're doing everything right, nothing's going wrong. If you're setting things up from the right place, what comes is going to serve in some way, visibly or not. I'm setting about my internal circumstances. I'm setting about altering them, or rather getting out of the way so that the natural harmonies can play themselves out, lend themselves to a foundation of cool, collected action when it will be necessary to have that foundation, which is later today. Not so far later either. After a shave and a shower, we're gonna be back on it. Back on the food race. We're gonna be hitting it. I remarked yesterday I remarked a few times yesterday on the ride, on the delivery route ride, to myself, of course, nobody else was around. How odd to experience such broad swaths of peace and ease doing this thing. It's nice to have a gradually enriching, a gradually self-enriching, self-educating practice like this food delivery thing, where I can explore who I am, what are the quirks of my personality, through what feels like it works, what feels like it doesn't work, what seems to constitute a really good day, what constitutes a day of heavy, heavy challenge. I've now had 3 or 4 days of heavy, heavy challenge, where the whole thing was just, the whole shift pretty much, just felt like nothing was coming or working. Had a few of those recently, in fact. And I've had a few days where it's been like, oh yeah, this is the medicine. This is exactly what I need to be doing. Exactly where I need to be going. For the time being. Because I'm going to have to rely on a robust practice. A robust experience of practice and experience to be confident moving forward, or at least more confident. We struggle with confidence in this neck of the woods. No hate. I'm just stating a fact. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Of course, I'm a judgment machine. We're all people here, I think. Tuning in, making this happen. Just a remarkably beautiful day. Can you see the hills in the background? I wonder. Bring it up to iCam for a second. Oh God, that is not easy. I slow down by like a third. Trying to stabilize the camera in both my arms. Whew. I get the feeling that was not a rousing, stitch-splitting success. Alright, we cut out to the side here. Generous space on these roads. It's appreciable. Not only appreciable, but appreciated. There's a difference. One requires a person to observe consciously. And I use conscious with a capital C. I mean systemic consciously. That means feeling and thinking. I gotta come up with a better lingo. I gotta come up with more functional lexicon. A verbal material I can rely on to communicate the experience I'm having. Because we get tied up in the gumminess. Thank you. Thank you so much. We do get lost in this verbose interaction until it all kind of comes back and we kind of come to realize what we were doing and dust ourselves off and have us a ball. Had to pick up my speed there for a second. You'll forgive my slightly more than usually winded pattern of speech. I was gonna say architecture of presentation. Can I cut my syllables down? No, not always. Drunken barbarians grasping at rabbits. Truly, that's the effort of having a coherent conversation while running, recording, minding traffic. and being creative. Allowing the creative space to do what it wants to do. And carry on. Time check, 25. Okay. I think we're okay. We're okay to start rounding out the way back. Today's goal is to make the same calls and set up the same space as yesterday. I think it's doable. When I was pulling my shoes on, I was listening to the Joe Rogan Experience. He was talking to a hunter whose name I forget, but he's on the Meat Eater podcast. He has his own podcast called Bear Grease. So that's the one name that I can tell you that I do remember. How much of a close one did that feel like to you guys? Because I was in perfect control that entire time. But that might have looked like a near-death experience to naval cam down where y'all are. Anywho. They were talking about hunters and living lives and a little bit closer to the earth and to what being a human being is. I was musing about thoughts of hunting. I think I might take it up someday. I think I might very well, just because it feels like, the feeling that I got from it, if I can articulate it, was I kind of have an itch to participate in historical human footsteps, right? Been a lot of ways to live a life since the human story has come upon the scene of life worming its way through time at large on the planet Earth. Human beings, us. We've been living a lot of different ways, but a lot of folks hunted to live in our world coming up as a species. There's a lot of attention and grace paid to the world through various human behaviors, rituals, and activities coming up. I think that some hunters pay a lot of respect to the world through participating in the predator-prey decomposer cycle, entering the food chain willingly. Some of us with very primitive tools to hack our way among the host of beings whose meat we can eat, but who might also make use of our meat. Of course, I was thinking about that in terms of bear hunting. I don't know if I could ever step down that lane, but I thought about it. If you take it down to its most primitive roots, and again, as always, by you, I mean me. When I go there in my brain and deconstruct down into potato mode resolution of basic shapes and ideas of hunting a bear with something like a rifle and not a laser explosive gun of some kind that can shoot 20 miles with perfect accuracy, or sending a drone to do it, just using my body. I knew a guy who hunted bears with a bow and a knife. What I didn't think of when I heard about that guy doing that was, yeah, bow and knife, but also probably a pack of dogs and a pack of people and a pack of gear and backup firearms and mace and all kinds of things. Just so happened that the aim was to use the bow and the knife. If everything aligned perfectly, that could be the way that it worked. But there were probably preparations in training and company, backups upon backups. But you still get my point. Like, we're still taking it down to roots here. And when I think about the roots of bear hunting, even with all that involved, it's different for people to use their bows and knives as the first thing. Even if that's just the hopeful idea about what happens. It's different than, let's say, a SWAT team or a military unit, a paramilitary super unit of trained killers using the best tech available. There's a difference there. Just like there's a difference between hunting a prey animal and hunting a predator animal or an omnivore that happens to be way bigger, faster, stronger, whose senses are far more available to the environment than you. There's something there, and what is that essence? Bear hunting. It's taking upon a challenge whose most primitive human analog would be in conditions where the odds were really good that things weren't going to work out that well. Think about the first people hunting bears, and you think, damn, they've got pointy sticks, maybe, and each other, which is far more important, and maybe domesticated animals at some point. Maybe bows at some point. Maybe steel at some point. Maybe tiny rapid projectiles in guns and slings and... Man, the fact is the being that you're hunting is accepting the capacity of the brain and the potential that allows us to come to this place with tools. That being that we're hunting is just hands over above our abilities. No, I don't think there's a lot of people that could take a bear on, even a little bear. And I think most bears can take many of us out, unarmed to unarmed. There's something there. There's a whisper of something that plays out in the human story time and again. Bears are no, which is setting ourselves up to go above and beyond. Our abilities. Leveraging what we can to even the odds or stack them as well as possible, knowing that based on the different kinds of challenges we can over and undertake, part of the conversation is always going to be lethality. Even if you're just a guy running on a sidewalk surrounded by